God has designed and purposed each of our children according to a beautiful plan. And it's our job as parents to call out that design and help it to mature into the unique genius they are meant to bring into the world. Today, homeschool veteran and author Maureen Wittmann is here to discuss Unveiling Genius, enhancing a child's intelligence.
Welcome to Homeschooling Saints, the podcast that helps you create the homeschool you love for the people you love. Our host is Lisa Mladinich, a Catholic life coach, TV host, best-selling author, and an instructor at Homeschool Connections.
Before we get started, remember to subscribe to this podcast so you never miss an episode. And if you're watching on YouTube, click the bell to join our channel. Hello and welcome. I'm your host, Lisa Mladinich, and today we're talking with Maureen Wittmann about Unveiling Genius, enhancing a child's intelligence. Maureen Wittmann, a homeschooling author and speaker for 22 years, is the co-editor and contributing author of A Catholic Homeschool Treasury, The Catholic Homeschool Companion, the author of For the Love of Literature, and co-editor of Why I Should Learn This. Maureen is a wife and mother of 7 children who are all homeschooled and live and work successfully, now as parents in work such as nursing and law administration and more. She's a grandmother of 9 beautiful grandchildren. Grateful for all the homeschool parents who have helped her over the years, Maureen is passionate about giving back to homeschooling families through Homeschool Connections and all of its wonderful ways that it blesses families in the thick of it. Find Maureen at homeschoolconnections.com. So good to see you, Maureen. Welcome back to the show.
Thank you.
Yeah, we're talking today because you wrote a really neat article. It's got some great nuances to it, and we really want to tease some of those out today even further. The article is called Unveiling Genius, Enhancing a Child's Intelligence. So just because genius has become such a little bit of a pop culture world, what do we mean by that? Let's dip our toes into what we're talking about here.
So I'm talking about unlocking, your God-given potential, unlocking your children's God-given potential, right? Helping your children to be successful in your homeschool, but also as children of God, and to, guide them, direct them, and to be able to take everything you're teaching them in your homeschool and take it out into the world and really discover at a core level God's world that He's created for us, and all the academics that go along with that.
Yeah, and it's complex, isn't it? So I think immediately everyone listening is resonating. Yes, each child is unique. We know that as Catholics. But why is this topic important to discuss and really break down into parts today?
Yeah, well, first of all, I'm not an expert in this field, right? I'm not a professional educator. I don't, well, I guess I am, but in a way, but, I don't have a PhD in this topic. I'm not a scientist, but I've always found it absolutely fascinating from, my young age. When I spent a lot of time writing this article just because I'm so fascinated by the topic. How can we nurture our children's, not just their hearts and souls, but their minds? How can we cultivate intelligence? Is your child born with a certain set, ability to learn, or can we cultivate that? Can we enhance it? What exactly is intelligence? What is it that makes my child smart? What is it that I can do to enhance, those essential skills? Is it a matter of attitude? What, is it a matter of environment? What can I do to help them be more successful in the area of academics? So I've just always found that so fascinating. And my theory was watching my children grow and looking at smart people, meeting people and talking to them and asking them, about their lives is, I think it comes down to curiosity, observation skills, having a sense of wonderment, and just having a joy about learning, So I know that sounds simplistic, but I really do think that's at the core of it. And when I started doing some research, I actually uncovered scientific studies that show that when we cultivate those skills, observation skills, a thirst for discovery, it's, joyful engagement, all those things, that children do learn better. And do well in academics compared to, if they're, today we have an issue with students just watching technology, right? We're all plugged in. We're not getting outside. We're not playing. And I think that really affects their ability to do well in school. So that's what started all this.
Yeah, no, and I feel like we've had so many new homeschoolers since the lockdowns, and many people are pretty recent from pulling their children out of more institutionalized learning environments, right? Public or private schools. And so this stepping into this place of prioritizing wonder and discovery and curiosity and really noticing things in new ways can be a whole new way of looking at education, right?
Right.
Yeah. So
recess, right? I mean, it has value. So, letting your children get outside and play has value. So it is a totally different way of looking at things. You don't have to be buried in a book all the time. So if we have a lot of play, then in play we are cultivating observation and curiosity and discovery and all those things. It's going to help our children learn when they do get buried into the book, And one of the beauties of homeschooling is the academics takes less time, right? We don't have warehousing, which can take 35-40% of the day, which is just moving students from class to class and taking roll and all those things. Yeah. So because school is done in less time, we can cultivate all these things we're talking about today, and we can encourage more play and more getting outdoors and creating a more natural environment for learning.
Yeah, so good, so good. Okay, so if you don't mind, I would love to just go through the 8 points that you made, because you describe 8 different aspects of unveiling your child's intelligence and cultivating it, and you also give us an action step, and maybe we can dive into those a little bit.
Sure.
Yeah, great.
So the first thing was curiosity. So I truly believe that at the very heart of intelligence is curiosity. I think when I meet intelligent people, they're curious people. They have a hunger to understand the world, right? The world and its mysteries, and that curiosity encourages them to learn and explore. So I think that is the number one thing, and that we're talking about today is to enhance intelligence in our children, is to nourish that curiosity. And, I think that by fostering that, we create an environment that's, just rich. And so how do we do that? I think number one, we do it by example. So that would be your action item, would be to be a role model. You need to be curious. Yeah. And if that's doesn't come natural to you, you're gonna have to make the decision, to be more curious, to, let them see your eyes light up when something new happens, or, and then invite them to follow your lead. I remember being at the beach, and, you're building sandcastles, and why does the sandcastle, why is it working or not working? I'm really curious why this keeps collapsing. What can we do to fix it? I think that's number one, is curiosity.
Yeah. And I would just like to say, because we're speaking to the choir quite a bit here, but there are people at lots of different places in their faith and their homeschooling journeys. And so what we're talking about with curiosity is something that is cultivated in virtue. And so our minds are not randomly curious about like other people's business, or that, image in the shopping mall up on a window that may be a little bit immodest or something like that. We're cultivating a curiosity that has, as you said, that sense of wonder. And so, like, I have an almost 102-year-old mother-in-law living with us, and when she's a word person, and she'll often go, I wonder where that expression came from,
Right? Yeah.
two peas in a pod or whatever it is. And of course, because I can't take her outside and so much anymore to wonder at the world, although she has that naturally, we can look up the origins so easily and marvel at the humor and the delight of what the story behind that expression, like something simple like that. Or she used to take my daughter out to look for bugs in the grass. Like, what really is down there in the grass? Let's look. Right. And so you see from age 2 to 102, there's probably countless ways that we can cultivate that sense of wonder. And ultimately, right, doesn't everything in creation lead us back to God?
Right. Why does that bug have a hard shell? Why is he red? Why does he have these long antennae? There's so much that you can notice about a bug and be curious about, or words, like you said. I love words, like onomatopoeia, or where did that word come from? Like that's curiosity too. So yeah, I love it.
Yeah. And I remember when I was reading to my daughter when she was very little, I just naturally did. I guess it's the way my mind worked. I would say, "Why do you think he said that? What do you think will happen next?" And my mother, who's a trained educator or was, would say, "You know what you're doing?" And she explained some educational technique I had no idea about. But apparently that just anticipating, asking those kind of curious questions about motivations and story can be very stimulating for the child.
Right.
Yeah.
So just being curious about people's motivation in a story is also promoting curiosity. Yeah.
Yeah. And I could even imagine, because we lived in the city for a long time and our daughter was almost 4 when we moved out of the city, people watching, as long as it's done charitably.
Oh, I love people watching.
What's their story, right? What do you think their story is? That's an interesting pair.
Yeah. Well, and it's almost like taking the world outside, the focus off of yourself.
Yes.
Instead of, we live in a culture where we're encouraged to always be focusing on me. So, we're talking about taking that focus off yourself and taking it out into the broad world. So, which is how we were designed by God, the creator. So,
right. So curiosity. So what's next on your list?
So next on my list is discovery. So, it ties in with curiosity. They kind of go hand in hand. But we want to do is kind of encourage our children to go beyond what's familiar to them, kind of go a little bit into the unknown. And I don't mean the unknown in a scary way, but, if I live out in the country, so I live out in the middle of nowhere, going into the city, right, when I go to see my daughter in Brooklyn, that is a discovery exercise. Right? Or vice versa. Someone who lives in Brooklyn coming out to where I live, that would be an exercise in discovery. But, we want to nurture that. We want to empower our children to take challenges, not be afraid of a challenge, not to be afraid of something that's unknown, maybe push their boundaries a little bit. So, it's always good to introduce them to new people, new interesting people. I have a friend who, I remember him telling me back when our kids were young, he's an author. So they always had really interesting people for dinner. And he always invited his children into the conversation, rather than that old, children are
seen and not heard.
Seen but not heard. Yeah. I didn't grow up like that. We were always invited to the conversation, but, what a beautiful thing. And so they were always meeting new people and getting in and learning, new getting into these conversations and learning new ideas. So, you want to nurture that, empowering them again to embrace challenges, to push boundaries a little bit. And I mean, in a healthy way, of course, and that may be just as simple as going to museums. Maybe you do something different, like you go to the races or, take fun, crazy field trips, get to know different people. Maybe it's going to different churches and I've always wanted to do, a church tour in Detroit and see all the big, beautiful old, right, Catholic churches in Detroit. Just so many different things you could do to promote discovery. So maybe even presenting different subjects in your homeschool. So, like I had a son who, I just feel it's really important for young people today to know at least a little bit of computer programming because of the world they live in. So, that was outside of his comfort zone to take a programming course. So he just did one course, one semester, and he was done. He wasn't interested in learning anymore. But we pushed the boundary a little bit, and he learned a completely new subject they never planned to learn. So it may even be something like that. Maybe your child's not really interested in science, so you have them do a fun course like, Macbeth Durham has this great online course called The Dog.
Oh, wonderful.
So he's learned biology, right, through the study of. So your kid loves dogs, but not really a fan of science. You can kind of push that sense of discovery by, taking this course. And so, having them do something maybe a little different that they're not comfortable with. And it might be a school subject, or again, a field trip or a museum, or meeting new people, going to Brooklyn.
Yes. Yeah. And I know a lot of homeschoolers who will go and take a family vacation to a historic area. Go see Gettysburg or Williamsburg or, places like that, because the children are reading about American history and they want to go and walk in the places where those things happened, to actually start to take their imagination right into that physical experience of being in the place. So lots of things come to mind, even studying explorers, things like that, just to inspire a way of thinking about things, a willingness to take a risk.
Yeah, and I mean, that's one of the beauties of being home educators. I mean, we're saying the Civil War. We could go to a Civil War battlefield, or watch a reenactment, or all kinds of hands-on museums where you're touching and feeling, or where people are play acting, where you have people are presenting. Like I remember going with the kids to a national park, and the people were dressed up and making a legitimate meal that they would have made in the 1800s. Someone's cobbling a shoe, and
I love that.
But it kind of brings those history lessons to life because you're seeing it in action. Yeah.
So much fun for them. And it just sparks their imaginations. And so often the younger children end up playing the things that they've seen. And others may just want to read more books on the subject or have more conversations about it.
Right. So you get them excited about it through, this sense of discovery. Then they go home and want to learn more. So you may find them buried in the book because you got outside and did a little exercise and discovery. Yeah.
Love it. And that takes us so smoothly into your next point, Maureen. What's next?
So what's next is observation skills. So again, this ties right in. So observation skills is just taking it to another step, right, where you're encouraging them to stop and look. So you're not just, curious about going into the woods. You're not just discovering the woods. You're going for a nature walk, and you're teaching them to stop, pause, breathe, look. When the kids were little, and I may have shared this on this podcast in another episode, but you guys get to hear my stories over and over, I think. But we used to go to this little strip of woods behind my husband's office, and we would go have lunch with Rob, and then we would walk in the woods. And, so we would be there all different seasons. And sometimes we'd go in the evening and meet him for dinner, or we'd meet him, for lunch. So I was always asking, like, how is this different from the last time we were here? How is this different from, when we were here in the afternoon and now it's dusk? How is this different from when we were here in winter and now it's spring? So just making them stop and think and look, and sometimes it's just stopping and taking a breath. I mean, our culture is so fast moving, and it's, like when my husband would take the kids to adoration, I felt that was so good for them because they would have to just be quiet, right, in the Lord when you're in the chapel. And it's the same thing in nature. You can just stop, breathe, think. I used to have my kids do some nature journaling where they would go in. We lived in the city at the time, very urban area, but there's a floodplain, there's a creek behind us. So there was a little wooded area where they couldn't build. And I would have the kids sit out there quietly and for a certain amount of time, and they could journal. So they could draw pictures or write, about what they were observing. And, my oldest son, who still talks about this experience, was sitting there in the woods, and a deer came right up to him because he's so quiet. Wow. And he's not moving. And So you can experience a lot of beautiful things, and that's educational, it really is. And again, it helps to spark that curiosity by taking the time to stop and observe what's going on around you. So yeah, if you want to put that into action, it could be as simple as going on nature walks, having them take time to look for insects or, look at the different trees. My husband knows trees. All right. Birds and trees. He's a bird watcher, and we heat our house with wood, so he can tell you all about the best wood for fires. But he could tell the kids, look at this leaf, and this leaf is this kind of tree. You can tell by looking at the bark. You can, trees are starting to change now. It's fall, so the sugar maples are changing first. So little things like that you're observing, but you're also learning. Why do the sugar maples change color first? Why when I go walking through the woods, do I have burrs all over my blue jeans, right? They're seeds, and you carry them out, and then, it's God's way of propagating plants. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot you can learn from just honing those observation skills.
I love that, because the beauty of nature is so stimulating. And I love also that you mentioned going to adoration, because there's an interior potential for observation as well. Mm-hmm. Observation can happen on so many different levels. What's our next point?
So the next one on the list is asking questions. So I want to share a quick story. I was talking to my friend Susan this morning. It made me think of this topic. She was telling me how they were, I forget where they were, at a national park or something, and they were at a presentation. And the guide asked Susan later, "Are your children homeschooled?" "Yes, how did you know?" He said, "They ask such interesting questions."
Wow, I love that.
He said he can tell the homeschoolers because they ask great questions. So that's a really important skill, right? Asking why. And again, this fits into everything we've talked about so far. That fits into observation skills and everything, but it's just taking it to the next step, asking questions. So, why did those kids ask great questions? Because they were really interested in the topic. It wasn't like, my parents dragged me here, I don't want to be here. They really did want to be there, and they really did want to learn. And that made them think, So, it's okay to challenge assumptions. It's okay to seek understanding. It's okay not to look at the superficial, but to go deeper into things, right? I know with my teenagers, we always had Socratic discussion. In fact, we even had Socrates Cafe, which was a team that we did. We met twice a month. And when we met for Socrates Cafe, the teens would pick the topic, and it was usually something we pulled from current events, something that was in the newspaper. And I would just ask questions. It's a great club to do, people. If you want to do a club, there's no prep on the mind. It's easy. There's no prep. You just, in fact, when I would try to prep and I would come with a list of questions, the kids would ask me, "Did you pull that off the internet?" Because it wasn't natural. So, but just teach kids to ask questions. Every question's just an invitation to discovery. Everything we've talked about so far, curiosity, observation. So it's okay for your children to ask you questions. I mean, there are going to be days where like, stop asking questions because I said so. You don't need any other reason than I said so. But for the most part, it's like when during read aloud time, I always encourage my kids, it's okay to stop me and ask a question. It's okay to ask me to clarify what a word means. It's okay if we have to stop and go get the globe and point out where this story is taking place. Yeah. I didn't want them to ever think that, they have to hold that inside, that they can't express their desire to learn more. It's okay for them, again, to challenge assumptions. And, that even comes to our faith, right? We want them to challenge assumptions that we see out in the world when our faith is challenged, but also in our faith, we want them to know why we believe what we believe. It's not enough to say the Eucharist is Jesus Christ, right? They need to know why. And when if they ask why, we want to encourage that, and we want to teach them that. We want to, it's a form of apologetics, right? So when they go off to college or they go out into the world, people are going to challenge them. And the answer can't be because my mom said so, right? Mm-hmm. They need to know the real answer, why we believe what we believe. So it's okay for them to ask questions, even if it is, challenging our faith and what we believe. And if you don't know the answer, that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
We'll find it together.
Yes. Right.
Right. You need to ask questions too. Going back to what we said at the very beginning, like you need to model that for them. You need to ask questions too, and learn together if you don't know the answer,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's very good modeling for them to see that you might say, gee, I don't know, that's a really good question. Let's find out. That church can be trusted to provide answers, and that even if it takes us a little time to dig it up, make the connections, and feel satisfied, look what we've learned in the process. Look how fruitful a question can be.
Exactly. And show them where to find the answer. Okay, I think we can find this in the catechism. We can find this in scripture. I have a great book on this topic that goes very deep into it. Oh, I saw this podcast that explains it really well. So, not just answer the question, but maybe show them how to find the answer on their own. So when you're not there, they can find it.
Yeah. And there's humility in asking questions, right? Instead of us all having to be the perfect avatar of having it all together, to be curious and discovering and observing and asking questions, right? This is a lively, healthy, humble, open mind that is also learning continuously and getting stronger and acquiring all these great skills.
I think one of the beauties of homeschooling, for me at least, was learning myself. I feel like I learned more than the kids. I did well in school. I was smart, but I didn't like it. I didn't enjoy school, and I could do great on tests, but I don't know that I really retained that much. I hated history. It's all dates. And as a homeschooler, I love history because we learn through story, right? So, we're doing these things alongside our children. We're asking questions alongside them. So when we're learning next to them, I think that encourages them to learn. They're not doing it alone. And like you said, it's kind of a humbling thing where I'm a student too, and we can learn this together, So I think that was a really good point. Yeah.
Yeah. All right, everybody, we're going to take a short break to hear from, ironically, Maureen and Walter from Homeschool Connections, our great sponsors here at the show. And we're talking with Maureen Wittmann about Unveiling Genius, enhancing a child's intelligence. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Hi, I'm Walter Crawford.
And I'm Maureen Wittmann.
We are the co-founders of homeschoolconnections.com and proud sponsors of the Homeschooling Saints podcast,
which is here to help you homeschool more joyfully, more easily, and more effectively.
We want to thank you for listening.
And we invite you to check out our courses at homeschoolconnections.com.
And now, back to our program.
Okay, we are back with Maureen Wittmann talking about Unveiling Genius, enhancing a child's intelligence. So we've been through curiosity, discovery, observation, asking questions. What's next?
Discernment and purpose. So, what's the purpose of all this? and discerning, the value of what we're doing. So, what is the value of research? Teaching your children critical thinking, discerning truth from falsehood. So, we want to equip them with the tools that they need to navigate all this. They're asking questions, they're curious, we're doing all these things. But, we also need to teach them how to know truth from falsehood, how to navigate, our modern world. It's quite complex. There's a real serious issue of information overload in our world. You'd think just 100, 200 years ago, you didn't know what was going on in Rome or Washington, D.C., or probably the next town over, much less. And today we know everything in an instant. And I think it's almost harmful for young people. It's just so much. So, that'd be a great topic too at some point for a podcast, just, information overload and how to deal with that, and, how to discern the voice of wisdom, and because you have all these competing voices in your head. So discernment and purpose is just taking, again, that curiosity, that sense of discovery, asking questions, and then discerning, is this important knowledge? What is its purpose? So, the action item that I have listed in the article is, when you're reading stories aloud or when you're doing schoolwork, just look for examples of wise choices, or poor choices, the consequences that come with those poor choices. So, just really talking to your children about harmful real life situations, but also examples of how to handle those situations, how to respond to those. So that's discernment and purpose in a nutshell.
Yeah. And I feel like seeing the parents making decisions, being included in family conversations, all the things that we can do naturally. And then I'm just going to make a plug. Homeschool Connections has some really good philosophy classes that teach children to think, and they're based on really good thinkers. Instead of them going off to college and learning, whatever distortions are being peddled on campuses, to start off with the greatest, clearest, most virtuous minds in human history and learn from them, learn those kinds of thought processes, and get so much stronger. So if you want to name any names, we can. I know I'm throwing you a curveball, Maureen, but we have such an impressive staff.
We do. And not just Homeschool Connections. There are a lot of great Catholic resources out there. For example, Colby Academy also has some great philosophy and logic. It's just, I think, part of the issues we have in our culture today go back to, we don't teach formal logic anymore. People don't know how to think. So Sam Nicholson in particular has a series of great logic courses with Homeschool Connections. Again, there are a lot of resources out there for logic. I would find a solid Catholic program. Well, even Memorial Press, which isn't Catholic, but they're Catholic friendly, they also have great logic courses. But I think that is really vital and helps with discernment and also in how to deconstruct an argument, and how to get through information overload and how to look at information that's thrown at us and discern whether it is logical or not, whether it's something that we need to digest or not. So I think that's a really good point. And it's probably something we need to add to this segment of discernment and purpose is learning formal logic, learning philosophy. These things teach you how to think, and it teaches us how to think in the way that God designed us, and to always have truth as our foundation when we are discerning any information at all.
Yeah. And our children start to experience in that framework of thinking clearly and valuing and honoring the truth. Mm-hmm. They're starting to image God more and more. He's the way, the truth, and the life. So when we equip them in this way, don't we help them to be bearers of his image more and more in the world?
Right. Logic is a core subject. Too often people think of it as extra, but I think it should be part of any core curriculum. And, so often young people go off to college to, get their liberal arts. So we don't have to do that. As home educators, we can give them a solid liberal arts education now as young people.
Yeah, we are so blessed. This is like the best time in history to homeschool. We have so many resources.
Right.
It's amazing. And dual enrollment and all kinds of amazing things for our kids, which you all have done a lot with Franciscan University and things like that. So it's just an amazing time.
Yeah. So really quick, talking about that, we do have Sam, I mentioned Dr. Nicholson. He has a course that he teaches at Homeschool Connections where you can get college credit through Franciscan universities. So
yep.
Your logic covered, get a little college credit at the same time.
Right. And you're really learning from absolutely brilliant and godly people. Thank God. All right. So let's go on to the next
Next?
point. Yeah.
All right. So next is organizational skills.
Okay.
And it sounds kind of like aside from it's not as lofty as what we've been talking about, right? It's organizational skills. But that's really important. So in the article, I describe it as the scaffolding of what intelligence, how intelligence is held, right? So it's not enough to know, right? To have knowledge, we have to be able to organize it. We need to be able to manage how we learn, when we learn. We need to be able to manage our time, our resources. We need to be able to prioritize things. So I think organizational skills actually assist in the nurturing of intelligence and the nurturing of genius. So what you want to do in this case is cultivate, habits of discipline. You want to help your children to be responsible, to be diligent. So maybe that means, showing them how to use a planner, how to keep a calendar, expressing the importance of keeping your word, right? So I committed to helping grandma rake the leaves today. So you have that responsibility. You have to carry through that responsibility, right? I have this paper that's due for my online class on Friday. I have to be disciplined and get that paper done. So if I'm not disciplined and I'm not doing the research I need to do this paper, how am I learning? I'm not. But when I barrel down and I'm disciplined and I'm keeping to my planner and I'm keeping my commitments, then I am open to learning new things and I'm not just wasting time, So organizational skills, I think, is really an important part of this puzzle. So, the action item here would just be helping your children set goals, maybe sitting down with them. What are your goals? So maybe with a ninth grader, it might be, what's your goal for school this year? What's your goal for, your sports life or your artistic life or whatever? What are your goals? And then, prioritizing tasks to achieve those goals. And one of their goals is going to be to complete ninth grade. So, right, how do we organize your school schedule? Maybe sitting down with them each Sunday night to do a to-do list for the week and having them check off their to-do list. Maybe it's just teaching them how to take those big, giant things they need to do and break them down into small, manageable steps. So these are all really important skills. If it sounds overwhelming because it's so much, it's just something that's done over time. You've got 18 years with these kids. It's not something we need to do all in one day. Right. But I think and as they get older, they can do more and more. You can't expect your first grader to sit down and fill out a planner and organize all their schoolwork on their own. But you sure can't expect your high schooler to do that.
Yes, exactly. When my daughter was 13, we started one of those Aquinas Academies opened on Long Island, and it was lots of fun and co-op, and I was teaching in it. And so for that year, because there would be actual deadlines, external deadlines for a lot of her work, I gave her a planner. And I really didn't do much other than just say, oh, here's those basics of how to use this. And I never saw, it really revealed an previously unnoticed talent in her, which was that she was very energized by organizing things. And she hadn't really shown that before. She'd been the creative, dreamy kid that I never thought of as being organized. And yet that tool, for some reason, really ignited something in her, and she took pride in it. And she's always done well ever since with managing deadlines. So that was like a very eye-opening moment for me as a mother. I was making assumptions about my creative kid that were not true.
Well, it's nice. I have daughters who, every Sunday night they'd fill out their little planners, and I have one daughter, all through high school, let's homeschool. And she'd be like, oh no, I'm fine. I got this. Don't need you. But then I had another child, a son who, he wanted to be more self-directed, and it didn't work out so well. He didn't, he got way behind, and so his goals weren't being met. Mm-hmm. And we had to have some serious discussions. What are we going to do? He may not graduate on time. So I connected him with a friend of mine who now actually works for Homeschool Connections. Well, not works for us, but works with us. She does mentoring for teenagers, so high school mentoring. So she was his mentor, and it worked so successfully with me. That's why I'm like, you got to come help our other parents.
Yeah.
But basically, all she did is she met with, we were at co-op together. We were in the same co-op. So at lunchtime on Tuesdays at co-op, she'd sit down with him after they ate lunch and go over his planner. And okay, here's a plan on how you're going to get caught up on your schoolwork so you can graduate on time. Here's what you have to, broke that giant task down into little parts. Here's what you need to do for the next 2 years, and broke it down by month, by week. And then every week checked with them. Okay, let's check off what you did. And not only did he graduate on time, he's about to graduate from college with honors. He's a 4.0 student. And trust me, I'm not sitting down with him in his planner. He learned how to do that on his own. And it took teaching him organizational skills. And it took someone other than mom, because obviously I was not succeeding in that area with him. It took someone else. And sometimes being a good homeschooler is knowing when to ask for outside help. And I got that outside help. He got organized, and it's made a huge, huge difference in his academic work, not just in high school, but now in college. And I know that's going to help him well beyond into the workplace. So I think that's a real important part of this puzzle.
What a gift to him to discover he could do it. It wasn't some fatal flaw in his personality. He could learn the skills and do it.
You're right, because you don't want your child to feel like, I'm dumb, I can't do this, I'm behind, pity party. No, it wasn't because of lack of intelligence. It wasn't because he was lazy. It wasn't because of any of those awful things. It was just he needed to learn how to organize his time. And it didn't come natural. Like I said, I had a couple of daughters, 3 daughters who came to them very naturally. But then I had sons. I don't know if it's just my kids or if it's a boy-girl thing, but he wasn't the only one who, needed a little help in that area. So again, I think that cultivates intelligence, and that it helps them to organize that knowledge into a way that they can use it and apply it to their everyday life. And again, go from feeling like a failure to feeling like a great success.
Yeah, wonderful. So good. All right. So let's do the next one.
So next one is pursuit of knowledge. So, again, that sounds very similar to everything else we've talked about, but pursuit of knowledge is, I think, more along the lines of joy, really being enthusiastic about that curiosity, being optimistic. I always say, if all I succeed in doing in my homeschool is to give my children a sense of joy in learning, then I'm a success. Because I want them to be lifelong learners. It's not about stuffing individual facts into their heads. It's not about stuffing in math facts or history dates. It's about having a real desire to learn, a real joy for learning. I want them to be able to grow up and still read books, right? Because so many children or young adults stop reading the day they graduate. To know how to learn, if my adult son needs to fix his dishwasher, he knows how to get on YouTube and find out how to fix a dishwasher, or, I want to homeschool my children. They can learn how to homeschool their children. I want them to continue to always have that thirst for knowledge. And so for me, pursuit of knowledge is all about fostering enthusiasm, joy. There are going to be days in your homeschool when it's not so joyful, right? There are days when we melt down. And again, that's a whole other podcast episode on, right, how to get through a bad day. But for the most part, your homeschool needs to be joyful, and they need to see your joy in learning new things. So we talked earlier about, right, letting kids see your face light up when you learn new things. Let them see you asking questions, etc. That all comes down to this pursuit of knowledge. Why are we pursuing knowledge? Why? Because it provides us joy in knowing God's universe. God is a creator. And, having that sense of wonderment, meaning. We haven't really talked about that. What is the meaning in learning? What's the purpose of learning? Why are we learning? Am I learning this math because, I want to be an engineer? Maybe I'm learning this math because I don't want to get hit by a car when I cross the street. Because, right, every time you cross the street, math saves your life.
That's so true.
Algebraic equation. How fast is the car going? How much distance is he away? How far is it across the street? And how fast can I run? It's a mathematical equation. What's the purpose of education? So maybe that's something you need to explore with your kids. We talked about asking questions. So maybe one question to ask your kids is, why are we learning this? What is the purpose? It's like I never understood cheating. Like, why would you cheat on a test if the whole purpose of learning is for you to grow as a person? It's not the grade. And that's the beauty of homeschooling. It's not about grades. I never assigned grades to my kids till high school, and only because they had to have a transcript if they wanted to go to college. But I remember my mother-in-law, she'd ask me all the time, how do you know how to grade them? I'd be like, well, we homeschool for mastery. So we don't move on to the next thing till they've mastered it. So I guess they all get A's.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So, why are we learning? Well, because we want to master the subject. So that's probably an important discussion, especially as kids get older. What is the purpose of what we're doing, and helping them to really see what it is. There's a reason why we learn Latin, right? I mean, Latin is not just the language of the church. It's also our English language is built on Latin and Greek roots. If you're going to get into medicine or law, you need to know Latin, right?
That's for sure.
Right? There's so many reasons. And same with, math, history. There's reasons why we learn all these things. And that's probably an important discussion to have.
Yeah.
To encourage them to keep learning. Yeah.
I love it. And I love that you mentioned joy too, because joy is obviously a fruit of the Holy Spirit, and we can ask for that.
Yeah.
But it's also the result of the suffering that precedes the goal and the fruits that come from effort. And so in the pursuit, we can be building with our children with the awareness that they will, just like your son, mastering his plan to finish high school on time and then going off and having the joy and the newfound confidence that comes of that. And
Right.
So just wanted to link back to that because I thought it was an important point that you made.
It is. I mean, you think about, like I have a cousin's, her husband, when we were kids, or not kids, but young adults, he played piano. And whenever we'd have get-togethers, family parties, he played ragtime. And he'd sit down, and it was so fun, right? He's playing, and everyone's into it and having fun and laughing, and he's getting lots of attention. But, he didn't sit down and just know how to do that one day. It took years and years of practice and hard work. So you have to, so you're learning the piano. Why am I learning it? What is the benefit? What is the purpose? Well, one day you're going to get to sit down at the family party and make a lot of people joyful because you know how to play the piano. But so, it's the same with anything you're learning. It's hard when you're in the middle of it. It can be hard and still be joy-filled. It's okay to admit it's really hard, but there are benefits, great benefits that can come from it.
Amen. And even from, and I love this final point, Maureen, I'm so glad you put it in. Take us into the final point.
Yeah. So last point, one of the most important, learn from failure. It's okay to fail.
Story of my life.
Believe it or not, I have failed once or twice. Failure can be an important lesson. School day doesn't always go as planned. I was just thinking about, in one of the mom groups on Facebook, one of the moms was talking about one of these kitchen table science books with experiments in it. She's like, half these experiments don't work. I'm just going to throw it away. It's not any good. I'm like, no, don't throw it away. That's a lesson. Like, don't be discouraged when the science experiment fails. Maybe it is the book, but maybe it's you. Maybe it's, you didn't follow the directions exactly. Maybe something wasn't measured out correctly. Maybe it's the temperature. Like, ask your kids, why didn't this work? And figure it out. That's a huge, huge learning experience, right?
Yeah.
Why don't things work? It's okay to fail as long as, you're asking, why did this happen? And then you take steps so it doesn't happen again. Right. What can I do differently next time? Because we all fail. right?
Yeah.
So we just need to encourage our kids and tell them, don't make them feel like failures. Let them see that it's an opportunity. It's an opportunity to grow. It's an opportunity to learn understanding. Or if it's someone else failing, it's an opportunity to help that person or help them see. Maybe it's an opportunity just for humility. It's like when my son, who's severely dyslexic, and I felt like a failure because I couldn't teach him how to read. I didn't know he was dyslexic. And I thought, my husband's like, homeschooling obviously doesn't work. And I'm like, it's not homeschooling, it's me. I obviously don't know what I'm doing.
Aw.
We're just failing every place here.
Aw.
But then we learned how to teach him. We got him diagnosed, and and he's a grown man and he reads perfectly well now, right? So we learned from that failure and we figured it out, and it was a huge, huge lesson in humility, more than anything, because he was my oldest kid. He's 35, so it's a long time ago. Homeschooling wasn't so well known, and a lot of family members were not supportive. And so in my mind, I was going to teach my kid to read by 6. By 8, he's going to be reading Shakespeare. I'm going to be just in awe of his genius. And the thing is, he is a genius. He's gifted, but no, by his reading skills when he was 6. He didn't take off reading till he was 10. So learn from failure. Teach your children to learn from failure. Teach them not to despair. Failure is not a lesson in disparity. It's a lesson in how to fix it and how to do things differently, how to reflect. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, Thomas Edison comes to mind. There's some famous thing that's all over the internet, right? That he failed 10,000 times before he succeeded to create a light bulb. But every single experiment taught him something that led to that world-changing, or the telephone or whatever it is he did. Like, I can't keep my facts straight. I'm not one of those people. But anyway, the point just being,
he didn't give up.
He didn't give up. So there's that grit, that determination, perseverance, all that virtue. And then you listen to some of the biggest, most famous entrepreneurs these days. They talk all the time now about failing forward, about, we tried that. What do we learn from it? So let's try the next thing. What did that teach us? Richard Branson's a famous example of that. He doesn't consider the word failure to be a thing. It's all about learning and more information. And this Christian entrepreneur I was telling you about before we hit record, Jesse Cole, does the same thing in his organization. Whenever they try a brand new, innovative marketing thing and it fails, they throw a party and they talk about what they learned from it, and they have a great time, so that no one ever wants to leave his team, because they can innovate and try things and be open to learning at all times. So just throwing that in there, that even in the secular world, this idea of squeezing out what just happened, debrief, draw the value from everything.
Yeah. My staff at Homeschool Connections will tell you, I say all the time, I like to be proved wrong. I don't think this will work, but let's try it. And if I'm proved wrong, awesome. I like being proved wrong,
Great.
We're going to try it. If we fail, we fail. If we don't, all the better. So you can't be afraid of failure.
Right.
And there are going to be days you fail. I mean, and like I said before, there are going to be days when you feel like, all right, this day's a dud. We're just going to stop and go to the park.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We're just going to start again fresh tomorrow. And then, when you do have a bad day, what do you do? Okay, what went wrong? I let the kids have a bunch of sugar at lunch. I'm not going to do that again, or whatever it is that made the day go south. You're going to learn not to do that again. And so, so I think, that the lesson here is just, when your kid fails, tell them don't despair. Ask them how did it happen and what are we going to do? And smile the whole time, Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, these are so good. So I'm just going to recite them again. Curiosity, discovery, observation, ask questions, discernment and purpose, organizational skills, pursuit of knowledge, and learn from failure. And we'll link out to this really very good article that has links out to studies and other information. Anything else that you recommend parents take a look at for inspiration, or any final thoughts you'd like to leave them with, Maureen?
Yeah, well, I mean, the article has some links. Click through those links. There's tons of great articles on the blog along this line. We love to talk a lot, and on our blog about the sense, encouraging a sense of wonderment and things like that. There's articles on ideas for field trips and what to do. I have a whole article on what to do when the homeschool day goes south and things like that. So Philip Campbell, if you know Philip, he and I edit the blog, and we have a number of different authors, but most of the articles are by Philip and me. So lots of good stuff there that I think would really help, especially a new homeschooling parent or parent who's feeling like they need a little help. And there's also the Refresh Conference, which we do every February, which is Burnout Month for all educators, homeschoolers included. Winter's just ended, we're in the middle of winter still. Christmas has just ended. We've been through all the holidays. We've had too much sugar, and we still have months of school to go. And that's when we start feeling a little discouraged. I always say, never change your curriculum in February. But we always do a little free conference. It's called the Refresh Conference. That may be helpful too to parents. Look for that. There's so many resources out there for parents. There are other podcasts and blogs and great videos out there. So just always be looking for encouragement. You're a professional educator. My husband works in education. He subscribes to journals and go to the conferences and all that. And we do the same thing. We're also professional educators. So probably the most important thing for parents is to be connecting with local community. If you have local Catholic homeschoolers, make sure that you're connecting with them. And, you're doing things together, like going out to the woods and going on nature walks and doing co-ops and going on field trips. And you can be encouraging all these things we talked about today as a group so that your children are even more encouraged because they're not doing it alone. They're doing it with their friends and family and local community.
Love it. Maureen, thank you so much. This has been really rich, and I know it's been encouraging to people listening too. So thank you, everyone. You can find Maureen at homeschoolconnections.com. I'll have the direct link to that page, and we'll also have the link to the article we've been discussing. We've been talking about Unveiling Genius, Enhancing a Child's Intelligence. Maureen, thanks so much for making time for this today. It was so good.
Thank you, Lisa. I just love spending time with you. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, everybody. Thanks for joining us. It's always good to be with you. Please pray for us. We're praying for you too. God bless you. Have a great day. And that's our show for today. Our program is sponsored by homeschoolconnections.com. Be sure to subscribe to Homeschooling Saints and leave us an honest review. God bless you, and thank you for joining us.